Remember that there is a 30 seconds lag, huh?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's okay if you don't see the Facebook. Yeah, it's connecting. Yeah, I think it's connected now. And let me check elsewhere as well. And yes, I think it's up. And how can you check if the thing is up? Oops, I opened a different tab. Not this. Not this. It's this. Hmm. Yeah. So Sridhar, we'll wait for a while because it's only six, no? And let the number of people go to like say 10, 15. Maybe they will start joining. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
five.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
sure.
people will increase.
Yeah.
Once people increase, then yeah, we can start.
You tell me when to start, so I'll start
So
off then.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, no problem, no problem.
So I'm not opening my Facebook, okay? So let it be just this way.
Don't. Not an issue because I सांगा पळयता आणि सांगता तुका.
Yeah, cool.
Not थोडी. I'll also give an introduction here. So Sridhar,
Yeah.
apparently me speaking to you is also audible on the
Yes, it
Facebook
is.
Live.
Yes,
So
it is.
that's a good thing. So that it also gives me an opportunity to, introduce you. That's something really good because I was a bit afraid if I could do that or not. So I actually wrote a small comment for people to see later. But then it's nice that I am also audible. So within a couple of minutes, maybe I'll start off the entire thing, and then you can take over from me, right?
Yeah, yeah. So let the sky be on so I know you are talking because I won't be able to hear it.
Yeah. Let me see on. And I can see about 16, 17 people live. And then I think in another couple of minutes, that's going to go up.
Yeah,
So yeah, we can start. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes and then we'll start.
yeah, sure, sure, that was fine.
Yeah. Sridhar, I think we should go ahead.
Right.
Uh, right. Okay. Cool. At the onset, I would like to thank Sridhar for taking out his time from his busy schedule to be with us and share his stories of how he spent a lot of time in Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary and National Park, studying butterflies and odonates there. And a bit of a background. Sridhar, is a personal friend and has been one of the best students that I have known as a college student. And he spent a lot of time trying to study ecology and trying to understand basic ecology, which has its roots in biodiversity and a lot of roots in trying to understand natural history. And with that background, I think Sridhar has a good hold on ecology, and he's right now a PhD student in Cambridge. He is trying to study butterflies there as well, about which Sridhar will talk to all of us. And without wasting much time, I'll ask Sridhar to start his talk today. And a request to all of you, whoever has questions, please start commenting on the comment box, and I will pass on the questions to Sridhar, and he will, personally answer all the questions that you have for him, and we'll close with closing remarks as well. Yeah, Sridhar, the floor, the presentation is open to you rather than the floor is to you, right? Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna cut the call, Pranoy, and then I'm gonna go ahead with the
It's
presentation.
okay. You can keep it live so that I can, unmute it, and then I can, directly pass on questions to you. So it's going to be interactive that way. So I
Oh,
can just unmute it. No
yeah, yeah,
issue.
yeah. All right, all right. I guess that works. All right. Uh,
Go ahead.
right. I guess this is the second series of the talk. The first Pranoy gave last week. I think most of you all attended. I saw there are 666 people who actually saw the presentation, which is quite impressive. And just to remind all of you, so this series of presentation has been organized by Arrow, mainly to create awareness regarding the three projects which have been passed through Bhagwan Mahar Wildlife Sanctuary, and which many of us know is a very important and impressive habitat which hosts like immense amount of diversity in invertebrates, vertebrates, so plants. uh, and so I would first like to thank Pranay for giving me the opportunity to actually talk here. uh, I'm in general going to talk about butterflies because I work on butterflies mainly, but I have been also interested in dragonflies. There will be some slides here and there on them. So let's get started with this. And also before I start, so most of the photographs what I'm presenting here are taken by my brother Dheeraj, and also some by Omkar Dharwadkar. So I'm really thankful for them too. Uh, right. Sorry, my slides are stuck. Sorry for that. Just introduction. Pranay already introduced me, but I already made a slide for that. Yeah, so I'm pursuing my PhD, and I'm a third year PhD student right now. And I'm working on butterflies. So these are generally called as bush browns, which are found all over the tropics actually. But I'm mostly focusing ones which are found in Africa, but also to some extent which are found in Southeast Asia. And to just to give a glimpse of where I studied, so this is our department. This is just a front entrance of our department. And we also got like a really nice museum. I thought I would share this picture with all of you. Like these are Darwin's finches. Uh, and these were actually collected by Charles Darwin himself back in 1800s when he actually went to the Galapagos first, which I think are really fascinating. And a lot of you might also get really excited to see them. Uh, right. So I was introduced to wildlife in general quite early during my childhood. I think in my ninth standard, where I first attended a nature orientation camp organized by Mineral Foundation of Goa, where I met Parag and a lot of other naturalists who were actually working in the wildlife. And this is back during my undergrad days when I actually started working on butterflies and dragonflies, like more seriously towards understanding ecology a bit. And this is my friend Vignesh and myself in 2014 serving dragonflies in Kure, which is like a very nearby stream nearby the railway station. Uh, and I'm actually quite glad that we did some bit of photo shooting there, so I can actually show those pictures to you right now. And last time Pranoy showed like really quite a lot of habitat what this wildlife sanctuary actually hosts, and this remained my personal favorite, the riparian forest, which hosts like really beautiful a lot of endemic and lot of elusive species of dragonflies and damselflies in general. Uh, and this was again in 2014 where I was working on a project where quantifying the diversity or in general community structure of butterflies, where I used to use the railroad as a transect and used to count the butterflies around. So this is again doing field work in Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary. And I'm actually happy that this project or this explorations in general allowed me to walk on the foot in all of this wildlife sanctuary and instead could experience quite a lot of immense diversity, which I was able to see there. Um and yeah, these are like a few of my friends. Here is um, uh, Abhijit Patil, Mrityunjoy, Adarsh, and myself again. Like this used to be our trekking crew where we used to regularly go on every weekend, walk to on the railway track or through the paths in the wildlife sanctuary, and trek up to the to see this beautiful view of Dudhsagar. Um, and do like a lot of observation just to observe butterflies, dragonflies, birds, like whatever we could see. Uh, so these initial years were really crucial to actually understand like a sort of diversity and to actually appreciate diversity in general, which I think played a really big role when I started working more towards the ecology or more towards the evolutionary biology in general. So understanding this basic diversity was the base for me. uh, and not just that, while doing these explorations, like so uh, so this was also like sort of a start towards my scientific career in general. So we found this while doing the surveys again on the railway track in the nearby. There was a very small temporary stream where we found this dragonfly, and then after looking at the IDs which Parag helped with, we actually this was actually the first record of this dragonfly towards the northern Western Ghats. But earlier this was only known from Kerala, and this was back then was my first scientific publication, a very small note which got published in Journal of Threatened Taxa, which is just like 3 pages, like a short natural history note. But this was like an introduction towards the scientific world in general. Uh, and also the butterfly work what we did, like Dheeraj and I did quite a lot of extensive surveys here, uh, and Dheeraj presented this work at SCC, that's a student conference for conservation science, which one of the very important conference which happens in Bangalore mostly. And Dheeraj presented this work over there, and that was again a sort of a very nice introduction towards the how the scientific world in general works. So so overall this explorations and this small studies and publishing these small things were really important for me to start my scientific career in general. And as I said again, like Pranay last time showed in detail about the different types of habitat what we find in this national in this wildlife sanctuary in general, that are like evergreen, semi-evergreen, deciduous, semi-deciduous, and all sort of forests, and they host like really immense amount of diversity of all invertebrates and vertebrates. And my personal favorites are these riparian habitats. What I said earlier, the riparian habitats are basically the sort of habitats where the water body, generally like the streams or the rivers, are surrounded by forest, and such habitats or these habitats are one of the best places if you want to see very forest species or very endemic species. And these habitats are plenty in this wildlife sanctuary, which hosts really supports a very good diversity. Right, and I'll just scroll through some of the very special species, I guess, what we find in this sanctuary, and what I'm going to show. Most of them are endemic species that we found. This is Malabar banded peacock. This is such a brilliant species. So this is the ventral side, but the upper side is even more beautiful. You've got this really nice bluish shiny bands on the wings. Uh, it's just beautiful. I think you just need to see this in the wild. This is another species, Malabar raven, which is again endemic to the Western Ghats. Um, Again, associated with the riparian habitats mostly. This is Tamil yeoman. This is a very common, mostly common in forested areas. Again, associated closely with the riparian habitat. Uh, Now this is Malabar tree nymph. I don't think photo does justice to this species. You just need to see this species in the wild. It has got this really beautiful sailing flight, and you can see a lot of those individuals are flying across the stream beds high in the canopy. It's really fascinating to watch them. Um, Now this is another beautiful species, the Glera bush brown, and I think the only remarkable species about this is that it's got this very conspicuous structure, which looks like an eye. This looks like a white pupil, a black circle around it, and it's a big eyeball. I'll talk more about the significance of these color patterns like that, but I just wanted to show the diversity of this species the sanctuary actually hosts. Now, why I'm showing this damselfly picture here. So when I started my master's in wildlife biology at AVC College, I had to do finally a master's project for around duration of 5 months, and I was thinking hard to what projects I wanted to work on. And by that time, I was actually interested quite a bit about evolutionary biology, but I hadn't really done extensive reading much. And initially, during my end of the first year, I was thinking that I would work on this species of the damselfly, river heliodor. This is a very common species. You'll find it on rivers associated with grass reeds, or in ponds or in any stagnant water bodies. Males have got this really ornamented body. They've got this wings which has this black tips. Half of the abdomen is uh, orange is yellow, rest of it is black. And I don't know if some of you observed this species has got a really beautiful courtship display, where it just comes in front of the female, hovers in front of the female, and then there are a lot of things I could have tested along with this. Like I was thinking to do some experiments and try to find out what traits does female looks while choosing the males and those sort of thing. But then I also wanted to work with someone who could tell me more about evolutionary biology in general. And while looking through the profiles of some of the scientists in India, I came across his profile of Dr. Ulasa at ISET Trivandrum, who was working on butterflies, and he was specifically working on satyrian butterflies, which is basically bush browns and the evening browns. And that really attracted me, because immediately when I thought of satyrians, the main question that came into my head was, this butterflies. What I'm showing here is a common evening brown. They've got this very conspicuous looking wet season morph, and there is like another very cryptic dull looking dry season morph, right? So the main question that came into mind was like, why some butterflies change colors? This is not the only species. You might have seen like most of the bush browns also change their colors in the wet season and the dry season morph. Uh, Here I would also like to mention is that my talk will actually comprise next part. I talk about some of this very common phenomena what we observe, like why some species look very similar or why species mud puddle. And I will try to give some of the reasoning behind this, which also is very interesting in terms of which shows like what sort of diversity these butterflies or these insects in general have. And the later part of the talk, we'll try to stitch it together how these behaviors might be important in conservation as such. Right. Coming back to the bush brown story here, right? So the main question which interested is like why some of these butterflies actually change their colors and according to the seasons. Turns out answer was already there. And when I started looking through the literature, I found that so these bush browns are actually widespread, and this species is actually from Africa, which is found in Malawi. This is called as a squinting bush brown. The name is very similar, and they even look very similar to our bush browns in general. And they have also got this very conspicuous looking wet season morph, and they have also got this dry season morph. So it was really fascinating. But then they already had this answer back in 1980s and 1990s, where they knew why these butterflies actually change their colors. And if some of you have not wondered why this happens, here is the answer for that. Right. So I showed right, this wet season morph. They have this conspicuous looking rings, which are actually called as eye spots because they actually look like eyes, and they function as anti-predatory strategies. Basically, what it means that these eye spots can actually fool the predators like birds. For example, assume that if the bird is coming to attack this butterfly, right? Now, the attack on the thorax and the abdomen is lethal for a butterfly and won't be able to survive. Instead, this conspicuous looking eye spots, they will they will deflect the bird's attacks towards the hind wings instead of this. So they kind of act as a act in deflection, like sort of attract the attention towards the wing parts rather than on the thorax part. And then you can imagine that if the attack is on the wings, then that is much less harmful compared to the attack on the head or the thorax, which is really lethal. So so this is what we call as the adaptive significance of this color pattern in the west season morph in this butterflies. While in the dry season morph, I guess it's pretty obvious why they might be having cryptic colors, right? Now this is a photograph which I took in the dry season in Goa, uh, and then there's actually a butterfly perching here. So I would give a few seconds for some of you to just look at this image for a bit and let me see if you can actually come up or you can locate where the butterfly is actually perching here. Right. If some of you have managed, then good. If some of you have not managed, then let me show you. Butterfly is sitting right here, right? You can see here, and this is like the zoomed image of this butterfly. This is a dry season morph of Melanitis leda, so I don't think I need to explain much like what cryptic functions are actually working here, right? And this sort of makes sense because if you might have seen in the dry season where most of the trees shed their leaves and on the forest floor, all of it would be covered with the leaves. Uh, and then when these butterflies, especially dry season morphs, when they sit on the floor, it's just impossible. It's so difficult to actually locate them, and that makes predators to actually very difficult to locate them as well. And you can only see them when they are flying across. Uh, and some might also wonder is like how are they actually able to predict the seasonal change, right? I mean, we make use of the meteorological department to tell us when the seasons are going to change, when the seasons are not going to change. But how do these butterflies can actually predict how they know like when the wet season is going to transition to dry season and the cycle continues? So, and again, like there is experimental evidence showing that the larvae can actually interpret the differences in the temperature, humidity, or the host plant quality, what goes in the environment. So the larvae have this the sensory mechanisms by which they can interpret these differences, and that helps them to actually predict what is the immediate, what the future environment is going to be, and accordingly they will decide whether they want to form the wet season form, whether they want to form the dry season form. This is a very simplistic explanation I'm giving you, but there is like a really interesting mechanism which underlies what causes this. And if anyone is interested, then I'll be very happy to talk about this later. Uh, Another common thing we might have observed is, especially in blues, they are like very small. We call them lysanids. So you might have seen in many of these blues, they have these tails on the wings, especially on the hind wings, like here, and they have got this like dots and this very filament-like structure. And if you have seen them in the field when they actually perch on the ground, they will be moving their wings like up and down in a very particular motion, and that sort of gives you a sense that this eyes are the spots actually sort of look like eyes, and they look like antennas. I'm not making up the stories, but there is actually a strong evidence, experimental evidence in the lab where you keep the butterfly, and if you keep predator, instead of attacking on the head again, as I told you before, instead they will go and attack on these hind parts, and these are called as false head, and the hypothesis in general is called as a false head hypothesis. So it's really fascinating to see them, because before reading all of these things, I actually saw all of these behaviors and all of these patterns in the field, but never asked this why question, and asking that and then trying to know why some things exist is really illuminating, I feel. So I hope many of you will also start asking these questions. Another common phenomena is about mimicry. This is a very famous phenomena, and many of you might have heard about it. Right, there are two butterflies here. One is a plain tiger, and this is the female of the Denydei butterfly. And they look very similar for the untrained eyes. They would look actually very similar, very difficult to identify in the field if you're not used to looking at them. Uh, so the question is, why these two different species look so similar, right? Why they have like such a what you call as a very convergent sort of the wing pattern. Now, if you look, and then what that the plain tigers are actually toxic. It's like the tigers in general are called as milkweed butterflies because they feed on this plant, which produce glucosides. They produce latex, and it has a lot of glucosides. And larvae feed on these plants. They sequester, or they keep these toxins in their body, and if predators want to eat this, then they can't, because these are really toxic to eat. So predators don't use won't be able to consume them. And this bright orange or reddish coloration, they act as a warning signal, because even their flight are like slow sailing sort of flight, because it's sort of a warning coloration, and it warns the predators that it should not actually come and attack or try to eat this butterfly. uh, and what happens is this female of the Denydeic fly, or there are many of females which show this sort of mimicry. It sort of takes advantage of the plain tiger, and having the very similar coloration, but this is not toxic, right? So having the similar coloration, it sort of fools predator thinking that it is also plain tiger. This is something called as the Batesian mimicry, where the non-palatable species or non-toxic species will mimic the toxic species. Uh, and just extending the Batesian mimicry to another type of the mimicry, where there are shown like three tiger species, like glassy, dark blue, and the Nilgiri tiger, and all of these are toxic, right? Uh, right. So this is here when multiple toxic species are mimicking each other. These are called as mimicry rings. And the idea is same here. For example, let's say if the bird comes and attacks glassy tiger, and it immediately knows it's toxic, right? And then it will associate this color pattern in general is toxic, and it will just won't go and attack these ones. So the probability of survival of other species by sampling just one species is really, really high. And this is something called as the Mullerian mimicry, and these are called mimic rings, where multiple toxic species, they mimic each other or have the very similar wing patterns. Even the Malabar tree nymph I showed you before falls in this mimic ring, because it has got a very similar color pattern as this tigers. So right. The next I wanted to talk about mud puddling. This is another very common thing everyone observes. So if you go on the river bed, or if there is a dead animal or the dead crabs which you often find at the river shores, you will see like lots of butterflies are coming and sitting on them. There's like various blue bottles which you see commonly mud puddling on the stream beds. Also, this is another beautiful image of the Ingrid Piero, why it's happening. And also, you might have noticed that when you sweat a lot, and when you really get stinky, like a lot of, but like especially Rajas and Nawabs will like start getting attracted to you. Uh, and I guess that's a very nice way. Like if you want to get selfie, I guess just get a sweaty and stinky, and you'll be able to get a nice selfie with butterflies. Um, right. So why do actually butterflies mud puddle? The general explanation given sometimes is it just used for mating, but it's not clear explanation is given why exactly that happens. So there is again experimental evidence which is shown that these butterflies actually look for sodium and amino acids. They specifically take sodium and amino acids from the soil where they are mud puddling, or when they sit on the carcass, which presumably has a lot of amino acids, so they take that. But why do they need amino acids and sodium? It has to do something to do with the breeding biology of butterflies. So in butterflies, males transfer something called as a spermatophores to the females. So spermatophore basically a package of sperms along with a lot of nutrients, which is mainly comprised of proteins, and also like high content of sodium in them. Uh, and males deliver this spermatophore to the females during mating. Now, the spermatophore is a very important component of the breeding biology in general, and you'd be surprised to know that in some butterflies, males can transfer 23% of their body weight of the spermatophore. Assume if the human being is say 50 kg, the 23% of that is around 12 to 13 kg. So you can assume like what significant proportion it forms for the body size. And why spermatophores are important is that it enhances females' egg production because eggs contain a lot of protein. So this is sort of a donation from the males to the females to enhance its egg production. Now the role of sodium is not really clear why they use it, and also I haven't read much on this thing, so I can't comment more on the role of sodium. But the role of amino acids or protein in general is very very known, so it has to do something with the breeding biology and when males give the spermatophores, which are also called as a nuptial gift or the way to impress the females. Um, right. Now the next part of my talk from here on, I will talk a bit on the conservation biology, the conservation aspect of it. Now we're very well aware, like say the like an thing, the railway lines or building roads has like a very direct consequences. Like it does for it fragments the forest. With a lot of vehicles on the road and which causes lot of road killing, which we are very clear of. For example, you can see here, I'm sorry to show these gruesome pictures, but I think it's very important here. All of this so this road kills and how the fragmentation causes like lots of these kills of say mammals and amphibians and insects is directly evident to our eyes, right? So we can say that the vehicles are so many that they are killing a lot of the wildlife, and we can see the direct effect. But what about the effect which we can't see with our naked eyes, which are very subtle effects, right? But then those things, let's say from 10 years down the lane, you might observe something is happening, some butterfly population is crashing, but there is no way of knowing why that might be happening. And to do that, we need to have very good understanding on the natural history of the species, right? So what the butterflies feed on, what the larvae feed on, what sort of host plant it uses, what other species it is dependent on, like say other butterflies or other ants. So it's very important to know all of these multidimensional aspects of the species. Uh, so one example here is we know like a lot of species actually are getting attracted to this invasive lantana chimera plant. So if they are there, you might see like so many butterflies just coming and feeding on the nectars, and it's so bad that I think when I was doing my undergrad, like some of the teachers were actually advising everyone to plant lantana in their gardens because because the visual thing is very appealing, right? Like you just see a lot of them coming and feeling. Uh, but but has anyone realized that this might be having a really strong effect on actual natural nectar plants? Like for example, say before invasion of the lantanas, I mean, of course there have been hundreds of years there, but because the lantanas might be attracting so many species, the native plants on which native plants which depend on the pollination, depend on butterflies for the pollination, so they might be getting affected in some way, but then we have no data. We have nothing to quantify that this might be happening or this might be not happening, right? So we need such sort of a very quantitative data to say this is happening and this is how it is affecting the natural host plants or the natural nectar plants. So such sort of studies are really needed to actually understand how sensitive these interactions are. Another example, again, like let's take the hypothetical example of mimicry here, right? As I told before, like this is the toxic species and this is non-toxic species, but it mimics this to take the advantage of this butterfly. Now imagine a scenario where we caused a deforestation and then we have just completely wiped out host plant of this species, right? That means that the plain tiger abundance will come down, like drastically come down. And what will happen is the dented egg fly number will suddenly become abundant in the population. And let's say if some birds like by mistake go and feed on the dented egg fly, and then they will realize that that the birds were being fooled all this while, because these are not at all toxic. And then imagine that will just increase the predation rate so much, this can actually drive the population to extinction, like it's called as a local extinctions might happen. This is the hypothetical example I'm giving you, but it might indeed be true, right, in some way. And there are some long-term studies which show like such subtle interaction can actually take place, but then they are slow, they might take like 10-15 years to happen, but we do need to know them to predict what's going to happen in the long term. Now, before ending the presentation, I want to give this one example. This is not an Indian example. This was a really remarkable study which was conducted in UK, and is considered as an iconic example in conservation. But then I want to give this example just to show that how important it is to you know know these really interactions, and how that can actually help in conservation, right? So these are called large blue butterflies. These are belonging to the family Lycaenidae. What I'm showing here is the genus Fingaris, Arion, which is found in UK and in the Europe, but the genus is also represented in Southeast Asia, and I think one species, if I'm not wrong, is also found in Northeast India. These species have got really fascinating, and which I also call as a very bizarre sort of a natural history. So let me just walk you through that. Right. So the butterfly will lay egg on a plant which is called the wild thyme, which is found in generally in the grasslands. Now what happens is the larvae will hatch, egg will hatch, and the larvae will feed on the plant until they are third instar. But after third instar, larvae will drop on the ground, where they're picked by these ants called as the Myrmica ants. Now, so how does the larvae does that is larvae secretes chemicals in the cuticle, or also called as hydrocarbons, which it will mimic to the ant larvae, and it will fool these ants to think that it's a larvae of their species. So these ants will pick up this larvae and take to the ant nest. Now, once inside the ant nest, the larvae will start mimicking the queen by producing again these chemicals, or called hydrocarbons. And in some species, the larvae even mimics or even produces the sounds similar to the queens of the which are present in the ant nest. Uh, and then once inside, once it start mimicking the queen, then what it does is it will start feeding on the ant larvae or the ant broods. Or in some species, the butterfly larvae will be actually fed by ants, because they think that it's the queen. So it just takes, this is sort of a parasitism where it takes advantage by fooling the ants, thinking that it's the queen. So it's a really fascinating natural history here. But this fascinating thing was also responsible for its extinction. And you can also see like how strong is the association between this butterfly and the ants here, which is also the case in many of the Lycaenidae or the blues butterflies, where they are dependent on each other. There's a sort of a interaction goes on between ants and butterflies. So this is how the one of the larvae of this Fingaris species looks. Um, and this is the larvae of another Fingaris species, which is found in the ant nest. So yes, and you can see these ants around feeding larvae, I guess. This is really fascinating. Um, now, so what happened is, and so you can see this graph. This is a very simple graph. This basically shows like the number of the butterfly colonies, and this is the year. You can see that the number started declining from around 1964 onwards. There was really sharp decline, and this butterfly went extinct in 1979 in UK. Right? It went extinct in 1979, and the B says that there have been several reintroductions. The same species which was also found in Sweden. So they reintroduced this species back from the Sweden to actually to get this population back uh, in UK. So then what actually drove the extinction of this species, right? So that is an interesting story here. So what actually caused the extinction of these butterflies is the ant which was responsible for the extinction of this butterfly. So what actually happened was, so when the butterfly population started declining towards 1960 onwards, so the conservationists thought that they should stop all the grazing. They thought that maybe man-made activities are the grazing actually causing or disturbing this butterfly. So they erected fences across all the grasslands. This species actually found most associated with the grasslands. So they erected fences everywhere, which means the grazing stopped. And also there was an event of myxomatosis, that is the viral disease, which mainly affects rabbits. And rabbits are one of the major herbivores in UK or in such type of habitats. So myxomatosis wiped out the major population of the rabbits. So what that led to the grass overgrowth, right? So because the grazing stopped, grasses, there was overgrowth in the grasses, and because there was overgrowth in the grasses, and which sort of shielded the sunshine, that started lowering the soil temperature. And this lowering of the soil temperature affected ants because the Myrmicus ability on which this butterfly depends, it likes slightly hotter soil because it needs that temperature is critical for the development of the broods. And because the soil temperature started going down because of the overgrowth in the grass, other species which persisted in this the lower temperature soil conditions, they started outcompeting Myrmica's ability. So and that sort of drove the Myrmica populations to extinction here in this local grasslands. And since that drove, because that affected ants, it directly affected butterflies as well. Uh, so it was fascinating that they even came up with the number. They showed that, even making a model, very simple model, where they actually showed that the grass, they had to maintain the grassland up to 2 centimeters in length to be able to keep this species in those grassland. So now and then once they started managing those grasslands, they started cutting those grasslands and managing them, and they were able to recover this population again. So I think so this sort of shows us that how interdependent these two species are, or how interdependent these butterflies in general are, which is very very important. So I am sort of emphasizing the fact that we need to know this multifaceted, how the species interact with many different, or with the environment around it. Sorry, my slides are stuck again. Right. Yeah, so I just wanted to show that once I started maintaining the grasses here, the population really went up and up and up. And now, or like in the recent times, the population is even more than it was in the original. So that's why this is actually considered as a conservation success story. And I think we should really appreciate like the intricacies that are involved when someone designs the conservation approaches. And just a very general message I wanted to give here is, like whenever we do, like a lot of the people are actually getting aware of the diversity around us, like because of these social platforms. uh, so documentation of diversity is really really important, right? But so is sharing this knowledge across. For example, we have these biodiversity portals, uh, which are keeping very up to date information on what we find, creating really good distribution maps. So all of us might not be able to do very hardcore research, but even contribution in terms of this basic documentation is really really important. And equally, it's important to publish these papers in the journals, because this helps it to circulate around the wider community of the scientists, and that is really really important. Some of the younger scientists, or some of the younger people who are just doing their undergrads or even schools, or who are planning to do something in research, I would encourage them to ask this very important why question when they go out in the field, when they do something, or when they see an animal doing something. I want them to ask like why they are doing something. This is a very famous phrase what we keep quoting in behavioral or evolutionary biology is, why do animals do what they do? So I think you start asking that, I think, and then it will be like, solving the piece of a puzzle every time you start asking. But that will also require a lot of hard work, reading literature, conducting experiments, and so on. And a very crucial part, I guess, is also public engagement. We need to convey whatever we find, all the diversity, all the results. We need to convey that to the local public in a very efficient way. And it's sort of this is actually my first talk, I guess I'm giving to a very general audience first time, and then I'm really enjoying this process. But then that also made me realize that how important it is to talk in a very simple language, and to actually communicate with a wider group of people. And ending my presentation with right from where I started, this forest actually taught me a lot, right, in terms of the wildlife, and then all the things I'm doing right now. So this forests are really, really important. And they host this really amazing diversity from invertebrates, vertebrates, plants, and everything what you can think of. And this is the image I think what I took from the Dudhsagar. Uh, so you can just see like how beautiful these forests are, and I think we should do whatever possible in our capacity to safeguard this forest well. Um, and with that, I would like to acknowledge few people, Parag, Shraddha, Omkar, Rohan, who actually introduced me to wildlife during the early age. Academically, Dr. Ulasa helped me to conduct my master's project, and which was a big, important event, I guess, in my life. Freer was my supervisor during my master's project. Oscar and Paul are my supervisors here in Cambridge. And friends and family. Dheeraj has been a big support in general. Vignesh, Pranay, thanks for again inviting me. Harshada, we have been talking about wildlife for quite a while now, and Abhijit, Adarsh, and many others which I haven't listed out here, who in general help to explore this forest quite a lot. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Uh, yeah, Sridhar, I hope you can listen me, right?
I can, Pranay, yes.
Yes, yes. Thanks a lot for this really amazing hatke kind of a talk that we have had. For example, it was very important that the message goes out to people about what kind of research happens in the forest. Like Parag did a session like 2 days back. Then he spoke a lot about what kind of diversity is there in Bhagwan Mahavir, and he showcased all the biodiversity in those areas. But I think this was really important to put in perspective that these forests are also hotbeds and grounds for young ambitious researchers who are based in Goa, or who want to go out and explore their opportunities and options. We have an entire living laboratory in our background,
Exactly.
and I think it was really important that your talk really conveyed how important these living backgrounds.
Yeah,
uh,
Pranay. So just if I can say, I mean, I find it so funny sometimes, because in UK we need to mention when I do my experiments, we get fishes from Africa and keep it in our labs.
yeah,
But I sometimes think if I was working in India, I could just place like two bait traps back in my garden, and then I would get whatever I wanted. So
yeah.
really need to appreciate like what we have back there.
Yes. So with that, Sridhar, I think there are a couple of there are two questions that have come up as of now.
Yeah.
The first one is from Rashmi. Rashmi asks you, what kind of toxins do these butterflies have? And I think it was when you were talking about the Danid egg fly
Yeah.
slide. And then there is another, means there's a follow up. And do dragonflies have toxins? If so, what are, no, sorry, do they have any? Yeah.
Okay.
And what
Okay.
about toxins in dragonfly? Do they have any? Yeah.
Okay.
That's the first question.
Right. For the butterflies, I think in tigers, if I remember, in the striped tiger, plain tigers, they feed on this latex-driven plants. Right? Like you might know, like they feed on these plants called as rui, the striped tigers and plain tigers, I guess. It's called Calotropis gigantea, I guess, the species. So they secrete this latex, and it hasn't shown that something called the glycosides. I exactly don't know what chemicals like exactly. uh, they are, I think in general called as a glycosides, and when like say the birds feed them, I think they will increase their heartbeat. Yeah, it will increase the blood pressure and the heartbeat, and it also causes like regurgitation in some species, so it really affects them in some ways. In some other butterflies, for example, I'm giving the international example again here. This butterfly is called as heliconius, which are found in South America. They have the compound called as cyanogenic compounds, and the larvae feed on something called the passion vines. And these cyanogens are really toxic. So yes, so these are the major class of compounds, but I don't really know exact chemical composition of what it is. You might find it like quite a lot of literature on that though. And regarding if damselflies are toxic, no, I don't think so any of the damselflies are toxic. Uh, but I would like to mention one thing is that how again like how these species are dependent in each other. This is again a study from South America where they showed that so in South America you got these butterflies called clear wing butterflies, and there are some damselflies which actually make these clear wing butterflies because the clearing butterflies are toxic. So it's again like baits in mimicry working here where damselflies are actually mimicking butterflies, which is very interesting.
Sridhar, there is one question from Parag.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but I
Yeah.
could maybe convert it into a question as well.
Yeah.
So Parag says historically it was assumed that southern Western Ghats species are not found in Goa.
Okay.
Most of the new records are interestingly southwestern Ghat endemics. So I guess Parag wants you to comment on this, and I would probably add to this. Do you think there is a shift in the range of certain species from southwestern Ghats because the climate connection? What is your comment on that?
To be honest, I'm not really sure, but I think remember Pranay, we were talking something called as a Goa gap, which was there. Uh,
Yes, yes.
and I don't know if someone has actually looked if that acts as a barrier in some way. But I think the answer to this might lie if we look a bit about geology in general, I guess, which I'm not really aware about. I was thinking about some things like to look at what actually causes this sort of a range limits. Like, yes, we know that in Goa is sort of a confluence, that Parag was saying before, that you find a mix of north, but a major element of the southwestern Ghats. But no, sorry, I don't really know why exactly that might be happening.
Yeah, fair enough, Sridhar. Because that's a loaded question, and I don't think that can happen over Facebook Live.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Now a light question,
Yeah.
by Charan. He asks you, if you don't mind, can you share one of the best memories you had with butterflies in Bhagwan Mahavir Wildlife Sanctuary?
With butterflies I had in Bhagwan Mahal Wildlife Sanctuary. Right. Okay. This is not very exciting, but this is a very illuminating fact, I guess. I think I remember I was walking with Parag again, because I had Parag has been a major driver of my what I'm thinking actually. So we were just walking on the railway track that time, and then I think the common Mormon female actually flight passed by. So and you might know, I don't know if someone knows, and a common Mormon female has this lot of mimetic groups. Like the one morph of the female mimics common rose, another morph of the female mimics crimson rose, while one morph of the female actually looks like the male. Uh, and an answer to that was recently known. Actually, Krishname Kunte published a paper in Nature actually, which showed why that might be the case and what genes and kind of thing. But that's the more details. But yeah, but that was a very illuminating fact, because Parag was like, there are so many of this. Have you ever thought about why there are different morphs? Like why these females are actually mimicking different things? And that just sort of hit me that time. It's like I had never thought of that, because I had observed these things happening, but never observed, like, but never asked like why that might be the case. And I still remember that, I guess. And from there onwards, I think I started looking things in a very different way. Well, it's not like a very switch way happened, but in a very gradual time, I guess. That was very illuminating, I guess. Those sort of questions, which. But yeah, big thanks to Parag again.
Okay, yeah, Sridhar, yeah, thanks a lot. I think those were the few questions that came. Right, great. So those were a few questions that came across, and I think more questions will come up as people see the recording of this.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to tell you that about 70 people saw your talk live,
Okay.
and based on the reach and the interest that people have on this subject, I think there's going to be about 1K to 1.5K views for your talk. So expect more questions
Yeah, yeah,
that
definitely.
come in the comment section. So I'll let you know as and when they come, and then you can answer those
Yeah, definitely.
as and when they come. And it was really fascinating to listen to your talk, especially the nice connect that you made between you and me, that is butterflies and
Yeah,
ants.
yeah, yeah,
That was really interesting,
yeah.
and it also shows how important insects are for designing conservation
Exactly.
strategies
Yes.
and policy making strategies.
Yes.
So that's really interesting. The talk. Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this talk today. And for everyone who is still tuned into this, next week we will probably have another upcoming, or maybe not upcoming, as Parag says. Uh, we'll have probably another upcoming uh, researcher from Goa who will speak about wasps. Uh, who will speak about wasps. That is Sandesh. he has spent a lot of time in Bhagwan Mahavir trying to understand wasp diversity and distribution. So it would be really interesting to listen to wasps after ants and butterflies. Wish it was on an evolutionary track, but then yeah, depending on availability, it goes here and there. Right. So thanks to everyone. Okay. Parag has another question to you, Sridhar, I think, which is kind of interesting. Can you put light on endomorphs in butterflies? I'm not sure. I have heard of andromorphs, but yeah,
Is it andromorphs?
it spells ANDOMORPHS. So
Then it's andromorphs.
andromorph. Yeah, yeah,
Wait, can I think of any andromorphs? Yes, I mean, yeah, the common rose has andromorph, right? One female which looks like a male,
yeah.
as andromorph. Uh, uh, is there any other species I'm thinking of?
But then, yeah, I think the question is more on an evolutionary line. Why do you think?
Yeah.
What do andromorphs do there? Like we have the same in ants as well, gynandromorphs.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
you have
yes.
same in ants as well. You have half males and half
Yes.
females. Then the
Yes.
question would be, what's the evolutionary significance of that? And you, being an evolutionary biologist, could answer this better.
Yes. I'm trying to remember. Krishnameg wrote a really nice review on why these morphs exist. I'm sorry, I don't really have a good answer to that right now. I have a paper. I'll have to read that paper again, and I'll have to come back with the answer.
Yeah, yeah, great. It happens
Yeah.
all the time. Fair enough.
Yeah. No, because
Once things are not online with what you do for a long time, I guess it evaporates. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
great.
sort of, I
But
guess.
I think it's a good time for you to read up and then share that
Oh yeah, yeah,
on this
definitely. I'll even
comment.
share the paper if someone is interested in more scientific ways of looking into it.
Sure, sure,
Yes.
sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Okay, yeah. Thanks a lot, Sridhar, and thanks to everyone who has, tuned in to us. And we hope to continue this and bringing more on lesser fauna. So next weekend will be Sandesh who will talk about wasps, hopefully, and then we will have Omkar who will talk about reptiles and amphibians either in between the week or maybe the Saturday of the next weekend. So yeah, stay tuned with us, and we hope to generate more awareness about lesser fauna from Bhagwan Mahavir, and hopefully all of these end up giving teeth to the kind of questions that we are raising in the current scenario. Thanks a lot. Thanks to everyone. Thank you, Sridhar.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you. Bye bye.